Alan was a stand-up guy. He was big like you. He had been in the military. He was in law school. And the way I met him was he busted me on a drunk and disorderly, and I think he added in a charge that I wasn't even familiar with called mutual combat. But Alex and I were at a bar that a friend of her, what was her name? Frankie. And it was called Frankie's Hideaway. Kind of a takeoff on Johnny Esposito's Johnny's Hideaway here. But it was called Frankie's Hideaway. And we had gone there one day, and I couldn't drink anything because I had a deposition waiting on me back at the office, so I was just having coffee. Well, I had gone, of course, at that time there were no cell phones, so people have to make a mental adjustment to that. So I had to go call the office to see if I had any calls. And there was a drunk there, and he had gotten up and came up and gotten a refill and had mouthed off a little bit with Frankie and gone back to his table. Well, when I came back from making the call, I sat down by Alex, and there was a woman at the end of the bar, and she was about drunk. Apparently her and her husband had had a fight, and she looked down the bar, was talking to me, the oldest pickup line in the world, and she said, "What's a good-looking surfer boy like you doing in a place like this?" Well, that was probably the worst thing she could have said. Alex leaned forward, looked down the bar, and just said, "Oh, shit," you know. And then the woman said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were with that whore." Well, that started it. Alex got up, went down, didn't put a hand on her until the woman took a swing at her. And Alex put her down in two or three real quick punches, put her on the floor. I run down to try to break them up. The drunk, who had gotten a free beer, hit me in the head with a beer mug. So it's all going round and round. The cops are there. Alan comes in, he busts, as he should, he says, "Okay, everybody in the house is under arrest." Rather than trying to sort it out, he arrested everybody. Well, he charged everybody with drunk and disorderly. He charged me and the guy with the beer mug with mutual combat. And so that was how I met Alan. And we became very good friends because I was down on the street and that was his beat. Well, by that time, Alan had worked up to he was already a sergeant, but it was because he was in law school. And that gave us some common ground, and we talked about the law. And his plans were that he was considering going into practice, but as it turned out, he became the top cop in another city, and he's still in law enforcement. He knew how the street worked, and the first time that he ever met Nikki, Nikki had a real fast mouth, and part of it was bravado because she was afraid. So she would make out like she was tough, and she would badmouth everybody, but in reality, because Nikki was a very small girl, she was maybe 5 feet tall. And so Alan came up and we were talking, and Nikki had gotten out of a cab and had come up, and all the girls carried shoulder bags. And basically their shoulder bag was their office. And they had pockets on the outside of the shoulder bag, and in the pockets they would have like KY lubricant, they would have mouthwash, they would have alcohol, they would have all of these various things, and they were carrying, and that was their office. Well, Alan, just trying to make conversation, said to Nikki, "I see you have some KY." And Nikki mouthed off with him. She said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm studying to be a proctologist. If you'll bend your ass over, I'll check your ass out right now." And so I stepped in and I said, "Look, Nikki, there's no reason to be foul-mouthed and be disrespectful." I said, "The guy's just making conversation." And I said, "Come to think about it," I said, "this guy, if somebody puts a gun to your head or a knife to your throat, he will put his life on the line to save yours. Well, it caught Nikki right in the face, and she realized she'd made a mistake. So she went over to Alan. She put her hand out, shook hands with him, and she said, I didn't mean to mouth off like that. She said, Mrs. LaFont didn't raise no ill-mannered child. But she said, I was just mouthing off. She said, if you ask Jack, he'll tell you I can get a little mouthy sometimes. So that was how the relation went. But Alan and I were tight. We had a good relationship.